I wanted to explain to the listeners what I think is happening with Suzuki. Like, you know how last year you saw them whenever there'd been a reasonable position by half race, they could march forward. And pretty much against almost anyone, they could keep coming forward, you know, and you could see them regularly on the podium. And it was around Mugello that I realised, I remember saying to you, Steve, that is gone, you know. I really thought that they'd keep going forward, you know. I know Alex fell, but they just didn't get to where I thought they would on the last laps. And so I started looking at it more, and I remember again saying to you, Steve, I think it's something to do with that device where everyone else is getting a couple of tenths, even 3 maybe over a lap, being able to drop that rear and accelerate out of the turns where the wheelie is a problem, because by dropping the rear, it lowers the center of gravity and the things can accelerate. And I think losing a couple of tenths even to the opposition a lap is the amount that you would be going forward otherwise, and they can no longer do it. And then you look at Sachsenring, it was probably the most obvious one to me so far. Out of the last corner, Sachsenring it's a bit of a nightmare, even on a stock 1000. I rode a stock 1000 there a couple of years ago, and for that GoPro lap, and you couldn't keep the front on the ground there because you're coming from a slow corner uphill, and then the ground levels out, so you're going over a brow, and absolutely impossible to keep the front on the ground. You're swerving, trying to, and you know, then you got too much wheelie control, holding the power back, which stops you accelerating. You're just fighting to keep the front on the ground. And out of that turn, I think they were losing a good 2 tenths, maybe even 3, down that front straight, and which makes it impossible to pass at the other end of the straight. And that's one of the 2 or 3 passing points on the track. And then you'll spend the rest of the lap trying to make what you've just lost up. And how hard is that when your competition's so stiff? And that's what I think. I think Suzuki, if they can turn up with that device, they're going to be back in their old position where they can start to come forward, you know, in the races. But the problem is, everyone else that turned up with that device took damn near half a year to make it work well. So even if they got it now, they'd be struggling to get it working really well before the end of the year. So it's not a good position.
No, thanks for your thoughts and observations there, Simon. Sounds about spot on to us here in the commentary box. You cannot stand still, unfortunately, in MotoGP at the moment. Last year, it was perhaps the most well-rounded motorcycle in the field, and if they had qualified poorly, they were able to get the gloves off and fight in the race. But Yamaha, Ducati, KTM, everyone else has made a step forward in 2021, and they cannot be left behind much longer. I suppose the only good thing, because what Simon says is absolutely right, everybody that has brought a new rear device, the squatting device, has taken a while to get things going. Suzuki, though, notoriously, because of course they perhaps don't quite have the resources of other manufacturers, when they do bring something, it's normally been tried and tested a little by the testing, and it's normally something that works pretty quickly. I know for a fact, because I asked Sylvain Gintoli, who has just been at a test recently, I asked whether or not he'd been trying something there. The answer to that was no.
I just think sometimes Suzuki are just perhaps a little bit too conservative, perhaps a little bit too risk averse, when they should just really go for it. And trying these developments that are commonplace now on the grid in MotoGP. I mean, it's essential equipment, as Simon just mentioned. I mean, I think Alex Rins mentioned yesterday that he was watching the race back from the Sachsenring, and it was kind of a bit deflating watching every helicopter shot, because he could clearly see himself on corner exit without that squatting device, how much the Suzuki was losing. 2 or 3 bike lengths in every corner, which is really hard then to make it back up on the brakes. The one good thing about the rainfall here in Assen is the clear visor. We just saw there beautiful shots of Valentino Rossi. Full concentration, full focus as he picks his way around his beloved Assen.
Jack Miller has got a great feeling for mixed and wet conditions, and has decided there's just no point heading out in this afternoon session. If it's wet tomorrow when it needs to be, he'll pop out, I'm sure. As Pol Espargaro's gone back out on circuit, he won't have done too many laps in the wet on the Repsol Honda.
Well, we said just a few moments ago how the old Assen in the rain was about 11 or 12 seconds slower than in the dry. It's about the same now. Alex Rins and Lorenzo Savadori and Ika Lecuona, they're in the 45, so we're around that sort of 12-second marker away from dry lap times, which is pretty impressive indeed. They've done another fantastic job with the resurface here in Assen.
As you just saw there, Marc Marquez, after that massive high side at the start of this free practice 2 session, the shutters are up. They're blocking vision from the cameras, of course, as they probably try and remove parts from that motorcycle. That was the new chassis. They won't want anyone getting a beady eye on that.
Yeah, will that be parked for the remainder of the weekend after that monster high side for Marc Marquez? Here's Miguel Oliveira. At the moment, it seems, come rain or shine, because he was quite strong in that flag-to-flag race in Le Mans before he crashed. Rain or shine, Miguel Oliveira is ready to shine. Safely inside that provisional top 10, courtesy of that early lap of 1:33.400 at the start of this session when it was dry. He's finding it hard to believe it was not that many minutes ago that it was dry. Quite clear here in Assen. And now the rain's starting to bucket down. It looks like this might be settled in now for the rest of the day.
Yes, some frantic work going on at the moment down at Dunlop as they prepare the wet tyres for the Moto2 session, which is coming up later. All smiles for Aleix Espargaro. He did enough this morning to put a time in good enough for Q2. The forecast suggests at the moment that for tomorrow morning in FP3 we should have rain again. However, the rain might not be coming until about 11 o'clock in the morning, so there may be a chance that we see changes to the top 10 tomorrow morning in FP3, but at some point we are expecting rainfall again here for the Dutch TT.
Just having a quick look at the wet time, Steve. Oliveira's last lap was super impressive. 43.776. I mean, that's only 10.5 seconds away from Maverick Vinales' best pace in the dry. That's why we're getting this high-speed slow-mo shot of Oliveira, because brilliant lap time in the rain conditions. That KTM, it's now working on all different kinds of tracks and in all different kinds of conditions. Watch out the rest of the MotoGP pack.
Yes, absolutely. When you look back as well, you can see that Brad Binder's starting to get more confidence. Look back traditionally through the careers of Miguel Oliveira and Brad Binder. Miguel's always been that 1 year ahead of Brad. In Moto3, the year after Miguel was the runner-up, Brad went on to win the Moto3 World Championship. The year after Miguel finished runner-up in Moto2, same thing happened. You just get the feeling, don't you, that KTM have got a couple of proper stars there. And then look at the conveyor belt beyond that, with Remy Gardner coming in, Raul Fernandez on the books as well, Pedro Acosta further down under Aki Aiho's guidance. And as we know, Matt, they will not sleep until they are champions of the world, KTM.
After all of his recent problems and dramas, it will be Maverick Vinales, courtesy of that 33.072 this morning, that will end day one on top of the pile.